Hello, my name's Chloe Bruce. I just want to read a short statement following the filming of Stacey Dooley's In the Psych Ward for BBC Three. I'll just read it out now, thank you. I've had the misfortune of being televised by the BBC against my will, when ill and under section in Springfield Hospital, Wandsworth. The producer and presenter of the show, Stacey Dooley, in Psych Ward Again, says at the start of the film that all patients have seen their bits and consented. This is simply untrue. I did not want the cameras on me at all. In fact, I was given a letter in hospital which said filming would be taking place on the ward, but that you can opt out by calling Stacey Dooley on her mobile phone. Not only did I not have a mobile phone on me, I can actually say that I was actually too ill to consent. No one has a right to consent on my behalf, contrary to what you may have heard. Some doctors do sadly have to discuss, in certain cases or certain conditions, the issue of consent with their patients. But when I was first diagnosed with psychosis and later schizophrenia, the issue did not arise, and if it did, I would certainly not have asked for anyone in my family to decide my fate on my behalf. When I was in the ward, I was forced into a relationship with my family that I did not want. I have some wonderful, kind family members, but had not had contact with my immediate family in the form of my siblings or parents for years. I do not know why someone has to be infantilized and disempowered just for having psychosis. It is my choice who I remain in contact with and who I have dealings with. Finally, on the subject of Stacey Dooley, it is hardly useful for the sick to have several months of filming in a single hospital, and during the summer of lockdown of all times, which was when I was filmed. I do not agree with Dooley's assertion that the staff are selfless. This is because I've had to endure notes that are wholly falsified, amongst other things to do with the staff. According to staff, I'm a violent criminal suspect on bail who defecates in their kitchen sinks and then eats their own excrement. They also falsely state that in each letter sent to my GP that I spent time in Berlin, of all places. They have also wrongly stated my mother's maiden name, giving me a Germanic Russian origin. I will leave people to judge for themselves at this point. They have chosen, I assume, this Germanic Russian name because I have a degree of fluency in both Russian and German languages, not because of these are both beautiful languages, by the way, and not because of a mother tongue issue, which is not the case. I do not have a mother tongue in either of those languages, but because I worked very hard to learn them. In fact, I have a first-class honours degree with distinction in Russian studies, and I have 3 scholarships to study for both an MSc and doctorate. I spent most of my career working as a journalist. I can only assume that it is so astounding and astonishing that any Brit to know these languages that the staff have fabricated on my notes a sort of Slavic Germanic heritage on my part. British people, of course, can learn Slavic and Germanic languages. I complained to the patient liaison service about these falsified notes, but the staff refused to correct the notes, especially the part on Berlin, which they insisted was the case as such. I know from journalism that you're not allowed to incorrectly state a person's biography. They seem to think I do not know my own biography, and indeed whether or not I defecated in my kitchen sink and ate my own excrement. And this is not just racist, it is a psychiatric torture to try and change someone's mind about themselves. There is a lot more I could say about this psychiatric ward I've been on. In fact, I've been on a few psychiatric wards. But I find it offensive to be described as an aggressive criminal when I have never been charged with any crime at all and have worked hard all my life and lived a chaste, happy, normal life without interference in this manner. I even had to pop into a police station to ask if I was indeed on bail, and when they checked, they said they could not see any bail ever in relation to me. I'm starting to think that the very stigmatised term schizophrenic has its origin in a dark passage of Nazi history, and it is my belief that harmful labels should be banned, including this one. For example, it used to be that reactive arthritis had another name which was stigmatised. Patients are accused of having so-called Truman's film syndrome, only to be filmed in actual fact. So I want to know who the paranoid one is here, because I do not know why they're naming an illness after a work of fiction anyway. I'm now in a position where those who sexually abused me as a child and the person who sexually assaulted me as an adult can view me in bed in a ward with one sock off, not because I have issue with wearing socks, but because I was put in a slip sock that I fell off my broad feet, that kept falling off my broad feet. Just remember, if I am filled in the ward again, it is against my wishes. Finally, even with one of the most diagnoses of schizophrenia, you can end up, like me, one of the happiest people alive. It is a long, uphill journey, but addressing co-occurring conditions can be useful in your recovery. In my case, later on, a superb neurology team in Vienna diagnosed with epilepsy following a 5-day EEG. This was a very tough diagnosis, obviously, and I felt very unwell, and I thought I'd never get better, but was able to come off my anti-epileptics some years ago, and now feel I'm pretty well seizure-free. When I was first diagnosed with psychosis, I felt like the lowest common denominator, but 30 years on, I have worked hard to overcome the hate I endured. Even though I have never met a compassionate physician in the form of a psychiatrist, I have managed to overcome these issues. Please just believe you can get better again one day.